Hello and welcome to Colleague 7's Sprint Review for 18.07.02. This will cover the work undertaken between the 10th of July to the 23rd of July. To begin with our sprint goal, and for this sprint our objective has been to investigate making email logging, OneDrive checks, notifications and GDPR updates a background task, instigated outside of the UI. We also plan to work on the markers lever feature to tie off known concerns and to offer some extra functionality in this area. Looking at the high-level items and to explain further, in this sprint we've been investigating and prototyping a way in which key back-end tasks can be handled outside of the UI, such as email logging. This is off the back of feedback we've received advising the failure of login taking place, but also with a view to offering further performance improvements and all-round stability in these functions. We now have an established solution which we'll be looking to implement over the coming sprints. The markers lever feature has been available for some time, but there is known issues and have been known issues with its use, which we wanted to address. We've also added further functionality here so that users are given more options when accessing a lever or a record which has been created via this workflow. Alert levels, which again have been part of the system for a while, have finally got their own interface in the admin area. We'll cover this workflow shortly. A new global setting option is now available for selection screens, allowing a user the option to run a blank selection search. This was previously restricted, as there is a danger that a search with no criteria across a vast number of records will impact performance, and as such by default this feature will be turned off, but I'll show you where this feature can be found. We've resolved a bug which was happening on documents received when previewing a certain type of HTML email. We've added the full name to the candidate, contact and company record. This is present in the main toolbar, but was raised enough times for it to understand that we needed to put it in the entity itself. And as two minor points, we've now added the employee count field to the company record, and there's now an option to parse a candidate CV from the quick create menu. We'll now go for a brief demonstration on the key features from this sprint. Okay, so the first point to cover, and apologies it wasn't part of the slides that just came before this, but it's the piece of work that was started not in the sprint just gone, but the sprint before that, relating to the not command in skill criteria searching. And that's essentially that previously it wasn't possible to use the not command as the first operator in a skill criteria search. So what you can do and what you've always been able to do is obviously build search results based on the criteria that you're selecting here. And in the interest of the skill criteria specifically, if you wanted to filter down that search results by saying that you didn't want certain candidates that had certain skills, you would want to use the not command. So previously that wouldn't be possible if that's the only command you wanted to use, if that was the first command you wanted to use in the skill criteria search. If you had ands and ors, that would be fine, and you could put not at the end, but not if not is at the beginning. So what we can do now is you can now select the not commands, and then obviously choose to add in different skills, and you can see that it will be refined down further, basically removing the records that contain the skills that you've selected. There are some caveats to this, sadly. The base technology that we use obviously as part of skill criteria searching didn't really support not operator being first, so we had to develop around that, and as such it's just meant there's a few features that aren't going to work alongside this. So for example, the option to search by description rather than by skill code, that's not an option if you're using the not operator as the first. You'll have to select the specific skill each time that you want the candidate to not have, and then obviously if there's a skill with the same name as that, you'll have to locate that same skill throughout the skills library to obviously ensure that it's not part of the search result. Also the use of parenthesis as well, or brackets around the search criteria if you're looking to break off sections of it in the way that it's to be used for. That's again unfortunately not supported if you're using the not operator first. Reason being is essentially, as I say, that we've had to develop around the restrictions that are in SQL searching to incorporate this not option as the first option, and as such it's just meant that yeah, the parenthesis option also isn't possible. So there's a few caveats, and obviously whenever you're coming across these restrictions, you're going to have an alert that will appear to advise why that's not possible. So it's fairly straightforward in terms of understanding the reasons why something is not possible. But it will support essentially the base need, which is obviously the ability to be able to build a search result and then filter down based on the not commands and after saying that you don't want certain skills based on not wanting certain skills or certain skills associated with the candidate. So that's the update we've made there. The next point to cover relates to the markers lever feature, which exists against the contact record, and it's to be used in conjunction when you have a contact that's leaving a company, either period, they're leaving the company and they're going to be essentially no longer a contact you can work with on your system, or if they're leaving the company and they're moving to another company that you actually have on your system. It's to be used in that scenario, so you can transfer some information from one contact to another against that different company. So the Marcus Lever option is available off the View More button that you have here. You can see Marcus Lever is available there, and on pressing Marcus Lever, you're asked if the contact is moving to another company. Basically, what we've had in the past with Marcus Lever is a couple of scenarios where certain things were either failing or there were definitely enhancements that users were asking after relating to its features. So just to run through what the changes are really. First and foremost, in terms of the bug fixing, there's obviously been a lot of work done there, but I'll go through and reference the different enhancements as I come up against them. So first and foremost, it'll ask if you want to obviously move the contact to another company. Select no there, and it will just ask you to verify date and reason in terms of the contact being marked as a lever, and then from there onwards it will be considered a lever on the system. If you are moving them essentially to another company, so then you'll have some more options made available to you. So if you want to move them to another company and we select yes there, then this screen comes up, and it came up like this way before, but there's a few issues with it. If we start by selecting what their new company is, and then obviously we're taken to a lookup option here. So from here, if we look up another company and hit select there, that company then appears. The associated address related to that company will pull through here. The date that they left, which can be quite important from the system's perspective, and I'll explain why in a second, is set here. But this obviously is the end date of the contact is in terms of them being against this company. So if they were leaving today and making you aware today, you just let that there. Reason if you've been given a reason, if not, then this can obviously be something that you just put a holding text against, and then you have options available here for copying over the notes, for copying over the skills. Now on copying over skills, you now also have an additional option made available, which is to retain the skills on the original contact. So if you're looking to retain the skills here just for your audit trail, then you can do so by ticking that option there. If you want to copy the skills to the new company that they're going to, copy their mobile number and other number, perhaps these are numbers that have relevance to the contact individually rather than associated to the company, and obviously you have the options to tick those, and then they will come across. If we hit save there, what it will then do is go about creating the contact, and it will take you to the new contact that it's created as part of that process. So there's a few things that are important to note now that we've created a contact through this process. Firstly, below the new contact record, we've got some additional fields that have been added. One is previous contact, which is here, and the other one is previous company, and that's basically giving you the ability, if you go into a new contact record, to go back to the old contact record and the old company that contact was associated to, if you want to see that kind of previous history and previous trail that you have with that contact record. On clicking on previous contact as well, just to take us back to the original contact that we were in, we're also now greeted with an alert when we go into a lever, and that alert will advise obviously that this contact has left this company and what date they left that company. It'll also confirm when the contact will appear as a lever from, the date that they'll appear as a lever from within the system's perspective. That's because from the system's perspective, their end date of them being at that company, it will consider them a leaver from the next day onwards, because it considers the end date as their obviously the last day where they're working at that company. So that's just an important bit of detail that's it's worth taking into account. You also have an option here to click to open the contact record, and an option here to click to open the new company record that contact is associated to. So that just gives you a bit of a better audit trail in terms of where that contact has gone, and if you go to that new contact, where they came from. Also, if you go to a company record that's had leavers and also people that have joined, there are two options that are now available as well off the company contact listing options that have got moved to company and previous company. You've got the option obviously I've set in there, and if you've turned off or include leavers, obviously it's only going to appear if there's been a situation there where they've moved, but on tick and include leavers, you're going to have just a bit more detail there in terms of for leavers that have gone, what company they're associated with. If you go to, let's go back to our contact record that we removed. And then from here, obviously, we can now go to the company record, the new company record that this contact has moved to. From here, again on the contacts list, you can see that we've got obviously this contact coming through there, so bringing through previous company there. So it's just a better way of having an audit trail relating to the Marcus Lever feature, relating to contacts as a whole, and that's the primary update that we've made there. The next point to cover relates to alert levels. So alert levels have been present on the candidate, the contact and the company record for some time now, but their use and their options associated with them have been quite heavily restricted due to them not having their own panel within the admin area, and essentially not being modifiable in those setting options that are needed to basically be able to assign the alerts properly. So what we've done now is basically update the UI to incorporate alert levels, so that the functionality is now complete. So from within a candidate record or company or contacts, off the view more, you've got the alert level option here, change alert level, and then you can assign different alert levels which have got an associated banner then appear when you're going into the record. So if you want to make a user aware when they're going into a record a specific fact to know about this candidate in some way, shape or form, then it's now possible to obviously assign this alert levels with a level of configuration. You can also assign custom alert text as well. So if you want to say something else on top of that, on top of the sort of default alert, then you can do. Whatever you would want to say, and then if you clear alert, obviously those then are removed. If we go into the admin area, you'll see that the alert settings actually work very similar to the flag setting options. So in the admin area, on the records row, you've got alert settings. Click on there, and then you'll have the different entity options where you can assign alert levels, and then within each of those, you've got an alert name, the text of the font color, and the text of the color of the background, and then you'll see the example in terms of how it appears. So if you want to change the color, you can just click on the color and assign whatever color you see fit there, and then obviously the actual specific text color will appear, but in terms of how it then looks from the user's perspective will then be shown in the example that you can see there. What else we've done as well is just update the user group permissions area, just so there's a bit of further restriction associated with this. So within the options that you have for alert levels, you can obviously see how it's now possible to, or was possible previously, to lock down these alert levels so that they can only be triggered by certain users, but you can now lock down whether or not someone has the ability to actually edit an alert as well within this area. So yeah, you can assign whether or not alert settings are visible in admin, whether or not different user records have the option to edit the alert text, and also whether or not you can assign the alerts themselves. So it's quite a heavily configurable element now in terms of being able to assign the alert, the text of the alert. Obviously, the alert that is named will obviously appear here as well in terms of how you name the alert, and obviously the colors that are associated with it as well are all configurable now. So that's the update we've made there. Okay, so the next point to cover relates to selection screens, and specifically the ability to now run a blank selection screen search. So obviously selection screens are these options that are available off the left-hand navigation. They're for looking up individual entity records in scenarios where you need to do a search which isn't quite as complex as the main search, but obviously has a few more options then and a bit more detailed in terms of the searching in comparison to running a single phrase search from the quick search lookup. So what we did have with the selection screens was clients asking after the scenario of being able to run a blank selection search, so being able to see all of those entity records within this view. And what we've had previously is essentially a restriction in terms of the amount of criteria, or there being no criteria, more to the point, within these selection screens. Obviously the restriction is in there for performance impact restriction, and based on the size of the system. If you do a blank search, it will take some time to bring back those records, and the more users you have doing those type of search, the slower the system can become. But we had enough requests from users obviously asking after this, so that we put in place a global setting to allow for it, and that could be done at a global setting level but also at a user setting level as well. So it could be that only individual users do this, but the default option is obviously still going to be no, and not allow you to do a blank selection search. But if you want to be able to do that, you will be able to moving forwards. So within the admin area, within global settings, and off the system selection list, what you have here is now an option there called allow blank selection search, and we'll set that to yes. Off user settings, if you were within user settings area, you've got the same option here. So the user setting will override the admin setting if this is not blank. It will be whatever the if it's blank, it will be the global setting. If there is a value in there, it will be the overriding setting to this feature. But once it's been set to yes, just refresh that so the setting takes hold. And then when you hit search against a blank selection search, you'll get a different alert which advises that this will return all records. May take some time, are you sure? Hit yes on that, and then you'll get the whole search coming back, bringing back everything. Obviously you've seen there we've put in place that animation there, just in case it takes a little while just to churn those through back. But that's essentially the crux of the update, and that's the same now for all selection screen searches. You'll now be able to run a blank selection screen search. For some of these selection screen searches, there are some default values. So if you do requirements, for example, the worked by will be defaulted to your user ID, and the status default to live. Those are sort of settings that allow for the requirement selection to be more useful day to day to users, but it is now possible obviously to set that to view all, set the work by to view all, and obviously run that blank selection search for all requirements. But that's the update we've made there. The last point to cover is just a series of minor UI updates that are worth making you aware of. The first one being the addition of the name field that's been added to the candidate, the contact, and the company record. This obviously was always present within the toolbar when you were going into the records, but we received enough feedback from clients basically inquiring after why the name field wasn't also present actually on the entity record itself. So that's now been added, and also the update name option that used to be in the view more selection there is now available there, so you can just update the name from clicking on that icon there. So the name field being added is one of them. On the company record, the employee count was a missing field that essentially was part of version 6 but was missing from 7. That's now been added, so employee count is there. And also from the quick create menu, we've now added the parsed candidate CV option here as well. So if you want to use the parser, you can obviously access it from documents received, you can access it from the candidate selection, but if you just want to go straight to the parser, just off the quick create, you've got parsed candidate CV there, and then that obviously allows you to choose your associated CV and parse from there. So that's the updates we've made related to the UI in terms of some basic changes there. As always, if you have any queries or feedback, please get in touch. I'll be keen to hear from you. Also, for those using Colleague 7, feel free to submit your enhancement requests via the support team or directly to me using the above email address. The next video will be the sprint plan for 18.07.03, and as always that will contain a high-level overview on the items we intend to work on during that sprint. Thanks for watching.